Hello, hello. My name is Broderick Sawyer. I am a psychologist, and today I'm going to be talking about healing racial trauma. Right. So, after the Buffalo Massacre, um, like many African Americans, I'm sure maybe felt overwhelmed, fearful, angry, cut off, many different emotions and experiences. Right. So, the trick is, how do we endure such blatant racial terror, right? Continue to go about our daily lives, okay? Continue to fight for things like Black liberation, right? And also heal generational trauma that we've been coping with since 1619, right? So the just intensity of that, this is intense, right? And I want to help folks understand that intensity and the intensity of that experience of racial trauma, while also having real tools to be able to heal in a simple enough sort of way, right? Because it's not just us like, okay, the generational trauma is done. There's no more racial terror, XYZ. Now we're just dealing with the generational trauma of slavery as Black people, right? So that's one thing. But if the trauma is ongoing, then it's really, really hard to heal. Okay. If we're still being reminded of this hate and this and being terrorized, right? And being killed and brutalized, right? So it's a lot. So there are going to be three pieces to this series. Okay, very, very quick series. The first piece is knowing your nervous system very well and being able to regulate it. Okay, that's a first level or layer. Okay. The second one is not getting gaslit by white supremacist systems. Okay. And then the third is feeling connected to our humanity. Okay, which is very important. But these three things, they come together, right? You can't do one, it's going all the way through, with regulation of the nervous system being arguably the most important point. So regulating the nervous system. So this is part one, regulating your nervous system. So what happens when you get stressed, right? So in this instance, a white man walks into a predominantly Black space and just starts shooting because he hates Black people. Okay. So our nervous system is like, wait a second, I can't like go somewhere without fearing XYZ or whatnot, right? So just the real imagined danger, not imagined, the real danger to our nervous system. Our nervous system starts to react to that. It's not in your control. Your nervous system reacts the way it reacts biologically. It is not under your control. Okay. So know this and remember this. You can't control what your nervous system does. You can practice regulation, but you can't control the response. A lot of people, they try to suppress and control responses, but that just prevents the healing. Okay. So a good metaphor for this, I would say, is like a pond, right? You're trying to look down at your feet, maybe you're ankle high, right, in some water, and you can see little fish by your feet, you can see rocks and whatnot. Then all of a sudden you get stressed. And then you start stomping your feet around and you're looking around and you're stressed and something's stressing you out, right? What happens at the bottom of the lake is mud starts to kick up, right? So then as this mud is kicking up, things aren't so clear. You don't know where to stand. You don't know where to step, right? You can't really see because the water is vibrating because you're moving, right? And this is what our nervous system does when we're stressed. So reality gets really hard to notice and look at clearly when we're getting whipped up like that. Okay. So regulation of the nervous system comes first, right? And even back in the day when I was providing psychotherapy, I no longer do. Um, what I was how I was trained and how I practiced was whenever someone came in struggling with racial trauma or trauma in general, the first thing we practice is regulation. Doesn't matter what we're trying to process. We cannot process and talk about things until our bodies establish a sense of safety. Okay. So this is very, very loaded for African Americans in this country, feeling safe in our bodies. What? And laughing a little bit because it's ridiculous, but it's hard. It's extremely hard. So what we want to do is acknowledge what our nervous system does in response to stress on a spectrum. Okay. So with Buffalo Massacre, you might have noticed a very extreme response, a very heightened response, right? And then you stub your toe on the coffee table and you notice a similar response, just not that high, right? And I don't mean that's not to minimize, the incident at all. It's to say that your nervous system is kind of predictable, yours personally. So when you get stressed, what happens? Okay. And here, just to a bit of a review, the fight, flight, freeze system is generally what our nervous system does. Okay. So in essence, something happens. We get stressed. Our bodies produce a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol volume goes up in the body. We maybe get more tense. We maybe get faster thoughts. We maybe feel down, but our emotions are moving. That water on top of the pond is moving. It's vibrating. Okay. So we maybe feel angry. We maybe feel rageful, right? That's sort of our fight response, right? We maybe feel fearful. We may want to avoid reminders of racism and XYZ. That is our flight response, running away, avoiding. Right? This can also look like substance use. Drinking that extra glass of wine. This can look like overeating. This can look like perfectionism or overworking. Right? I'm trying to avoid the fact that I'm really jacked up because I'm stressed. Then we have our freeze response. Freezing is like a mobilization. It almost feels like numbness. Your body is just like, I can't, this is so stressful. I'm just going to numb out, right? So these are just three responses that happen within the survival brain, okay? So when we get stressed, when that volume goes up, these are some of the responses that might happen. Then they look different for everybody. So for you, the first step is getting a sense of what is my body and my brain, right? What does it do when there's stress? Okay. And then a further question is, what regulates my body? Okay. Yes, there's racism. Yes, there's terror. There are all these things, right? Now I'm noticing a fight reaction or I'm noticing a freeze reaction, right? How do I downregulate just enough so that I can see reality clearly? We're not trying to avoid our emotions or get rid of those emotions. We're trying to make sure that we can still keep our head above water and not become overwhelmed by those experiences. Okay. So as you get to know your nervous system's favorite response to stress in general, especially racial stress, then you can start to actually practice things that maybe down-regulate that nervous system. Okay. Things like breathing are big, being hydrated, eating enough fruits and veggies and nutritious foods. It helps your body to regulate because your it panics. Okay. Even with imagined stress or imagined fearful things, your body can start to react. When we talk about Black racial trauma, it is not imagined, right? So your body is really reacting potentially, right? So figure out what that reaction is and figure out what helps your body stay safe and feel safe or safe enough so that you're not drowning in these generationally traumatic emotions. Okay. So next, what we're going to talk about in processing is not getting gaslit. Okay, so how do we not get gaslit by white supremacy?